Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very small video I have for you all. I'm going to be discussing the action from the Monday night game between the Steelers and the Texans, Aaron Rodgers' future, and of course, I'm going to talk about Mike Tomlin officially resigning from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not a full podcast today. We'll get to some stuff on Friday. Got a lot of things going on today as of Wednesday and tomorrow, Thursday. So we'll have a show on Friday, pretty much previewing the divisional round weekend. So a couple things that I want to discuss with you guys is obviously the action from the game between the Texans and the Steelers. I'm going to be totally transparent. I did not love this game. It felt like the Ravens would have been a better watch than the Steelers. And obviously the storyline coming out of this game is Aaron Rodgers and his future. Aaron Rodgers obviously did not have a good game by any stretch of the imagination. The offensive line didn't play well. The skill position players did not play well. DK Metcalf dropped the ball early, and it felt like Aaron Rodgers did not want to go to him after that play in the first quarter, roughly. Kenneth Gainwell, he was dropping wide open screen passes. It was just a bad game overall, all around for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And again, the biggest conversation coming out of this game, Aaron Rodgers, he throws an interception in the final pass of his possible career. And it has been the biggest headline. Is Aaron Rodgers going to come back and play another season? He only signed a 1-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I had this thought. Why even come back? You're not going to win a Super Bowl. And I've kind of been on this train. Ever since Aaron Rodgers, these last couple of years when he went to the Jets. Originally, when he left the Packers and went to the Jets, it felt like at the time the Jets were the best opportunity for him to possibly win, given the idea that at the time the Patriots were not good. Your only competition were the Buffalo Bills, and obviously Miami wasn't good either. And the roster all around, the defense had played well, and it felt like at the time the Jets only needed good quarterback play. And obviously, the first year, Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles, and the year after that, Aaron Rodgers could not deliver that because the defense didn't get good and everything else. Like, I compared the Aaron Rodgers situation to Tom Brady. Obviously, at this point in his career, Aaron Rodgers is looking for this Tom Brady type revitalization of his career. Like, I want to win another Super Bowl outside the limelight of the Green Bay Packers. And if you're Aaron Rodgers, I don't see how you see that happening in any way, form, of the imagination. If we look at Tom Brady, yes, Tom Brady went to a different team. But Tom Brady went to a Buccaneers team that was kind of similar to the Jets, where at the time it felt like all they needed was a quarterback. Jameis Winston was Mr. 30 for 30. He threw 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. They had a competent defense. You had Mike Evans, future Hall of Famer. And they just needed the quarterback. And Tom Brady came, he brought Rob Gronkowski with him, and Bruce Arians, and then were able to go and make a run at a Super Bowl. But that Jets run was Aaron Rodgers' chance to be able to copy that. And he was not able to accomplish that goal. And this year with the Steelers, I never felt like this team was going to win a Super Bowl, even though the division was god-awful, even though the Chiefs, the team that has been running the AFC, they're currently not in the mix this year. And there's a whole lot of, what's the word I'm looking for here? There's a whole lot of parity. There we go. I couldn't get it out. Parity going on in the NFL this year, where I know some people were thinking that the Steelers' window was open to win a Super Bowl this year. I never felt that way. Even when they've played some good football over the last couple of weeks, they had a big win against Detroit. They did not play well the second to last week in Week 17 to the Browns. They dropped that game. And it took a missed field goal by the Ravens to even get themselves in this playoff game against the Texans. And a lot of people were even choosing the Steelers to win this game. I cannot quite remember the line, but there were a lot of experts in the league and around the media space that were picking the Steelers to win this game against the Texans. And I said, there's no possible way. I mean, when we look at Aaron Rodgers' accolades, he's won a Super Bowl. He's been a Super Bowl MVP. He's a 4-time regular season MVP, 4 first-team All-Pros, 10 Pro Bowls, 2010 All-Decade Team, lowest interception rate in NFL history. What's so bad about walking out that way? When we saw this game, and granted, we got to give credit to Aaron Rodgers. He put together a couple of weeks down the stretch of pretty high-level football. Specifically in that game against Detroit, and I believe it might have been, even the last game against the Ravens. It kind of felt like Aaron Rodgers was putting together a couple of pretty vintage performances. But when I go back to the Tom Brady comparison, when we think about how Tom Brady went out in that playoff game against the Dallas Cowboys, you can just tell he just didn't have it. He just lost it. All the love of football just completely rattled out from Tom Brady. And when we watched this game against the Steelers, kind of felt like that. It was a 7-6 ball game going into the fourth quarter. And the offense all around, from not only Aaron Rodgers, as I said earlier, from Kenneth Gainwell, all the skill position players, offensive line, Pat Freiermuth, like they just didn't have their fastball. And this offense has been hit or miss all season. And the result from that game on Monday night did not shock me in any way, form, or fashion. As it's in the lower third, this is the largest home playoff loss in the history of the Steelers franchise. That is not a stat that Mike Tomlin did not want to be a part of, and we're fixing to get to him in one moment. And I'm sure that is not a stat that Aaron Rodgers wanted to be a part of. Because when Aaron Rodgers came to the Steelers, everyone felt like he was kind of like in the Jets situation, the saving grace for the Steelers. Because the Steelers have always felt like a quarterback away. They've had a dominant defense over the past couple of years. Obviously, not this year. They've kind of been banged up, paid a lot of money for a certain amount of guys, and they have not played well. They let go of Darius Slay in the middle of the season this year. They moved Jalen Ramsey to free safety because he's old. He really can't move that well. TJ Watt, he punctured his lung at one point towards the end of the season. He only had 7 sacks going into Monday night's game. Cameron Hayward been a shell of himself. So they got a pretty old team. And don't even get me started with the offense. Like I said a while ago, they've been here to miss all year. So, and to move on to the Texans for just a bit, it feels as if C.J. Stroud could derail the Texans' Super Bowl hopes because he did not play well. It was easily his worst playoff game he's played so far in his career. He is 3-0 in the past 3 seasons with DeMeco Ryans, but he was getting strip sacked, throwing interceptions, making a lot of boneheaded type decisions. Trevor Lawrence-esque type decisions. Not the Trevor Lawrence of this year, but Trevor Lawrence of previous years. Like, if it wasn't for that defense on Monday night, easily the Texans would have threw that game away. We have to understand that it was a 1-point game going into the fourth quarter. And it kind of felt like the offensive coordinator and DeMeco Ryans said to themselves, like, we got to take this game out of C.J. Stroud's hands. They handed it off to the running back. That guy, he's been a pretty good player so far this year. And he was running the football at will. And it kind of felt like at that point in time in the game that the Steelers defense was giving up. TJ Watt, Highsmith, Cameron Hayward, they were trying their best, holding the Texans to only 7 points going into the fourth quarter. And after that, everything collapsed. Granted, 14 of the points came from the defense of the Texans. But they just handed the ball off and let C.J. Stroud at one point in the game just become a game manager. And they come up with a win. We have to remember at one point in the season, the Texans were winning games with the Mules. They were. They were winning games without C.J. Stroud. Mules was getting the job done for the Texans. And one of those, and it really feels like that this defense is one of those defenses that can be the why for the reason a team wins the Super Bowl. This defense is absolutely elite. They have given fits to the star quarterbacks in the AFC, rather it be Patrick Mahomes, the game that virtually got rid of their playoff hopes, and the game that they played where Josh Allen had arguably his worst game of the season. So it's going to be interesting how they fare up against Drake May. That matchup is going to be very, very interesting. And I don't know the line quite yet, But it's going to be interesting to see what Vegas is giving the odds for the Texans to win that game, because I think obviously this defense can travel. They could travel. They played against Josh Allen at home, but Patrick Mahomes was on the road. They went into Kansas City and did a number on Patrick Mahomes. So I think they can go into Foxborough and do a job on Drake May. So I'm interested to see how that line does. But this defense is can suffocate you. They can be the reason why a team wins a Super Bowl. I'm not going to say they can have an elite of an elite performance like a Broncos type performance with Von Miller against the Panthers in 2015, 10 years ago. But this defense can be the reason why a team wins a Super Bowl, and the reason why C.J. Stroud, and possibly the reason why C.J. Stroud, with the way the offense has been playing, can get carried to an AFC Championship game and represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. Not really shocked about the result on Monday night. And if it's Aaron Rodgers' time to go, we can all celebrate him. He is no doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, a first ballot Hall of Famer. You can argue a top 5 quarterback to ever play the position. And he's pretty much the last quarterback. You can argue Matthew Stafford, but he officially is more than likely the last quarterback of the Brady era. You know, the Peyton Mannings, the Tom Bradys, the Andrew Lucks, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, like all those guys. Aaron Rodgers is pretty much the last domino in that group. And if it is his time, that is officially an end of an era in the NFL. Now, here's another guy that we are roughly going to discuss. And we kind of all saw this happening in some way, form, or fashion. Even if they would have lost in week 18, or if they would have even lost this game. Because when the news broke yesterday, it kind of felt like, and I know I saw someone on Twitter post this felt planned. It felt like that Mike Tomlin pretty much has made his mind up about possibly moving on from being the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He coached them for 19 seasons, has a 200-124 record. He's the first Pittsburgh coach to not win a playoff game in 9 consecutive seasons. He won a Super Bowl. And many people have said it. Ever since 2017, it just has not felt the same. And I've saw many people talk about it, and I've argued it myself. Kind of felt like over the last couple of years, Mike Tomlin has been more worried about being recognized as the coach who never had a losing season, rather than being the head coach that was worried about prioritizing winning a Super Bowl. The problem has been for the Steelers, and obviously for Mike Tomlin, it was time. It was time. This move was needed for Mike Tomlin, and this move was needed for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And for Mike Tomlin, he never understood that losing can be an asset. When we look across the league, teams are able to kind of rebuild and make another run at it. The Steelers have never been able to do that because they're picking in the draft at the early 20s, late 10s. They're never got a top 10, top 15 draft pick. I would love to look up the last time they've had a top 15 draft pick. So the Steelers have never been in a position to fully kind of get a player, get that quarterback that they have needed in order to propel themselves to ultimately compete for a championship. Because my problem with Mike Tomlin has always been the Packers were super efficient at this. When Matt LaFleur was there, and we're talking about the Jordan Love draft with Aaron Rodgers just signing a new contract. He just came off of winning an MVP. And you make the Jordan Love pick, and everybody, and even Aaron Rodgers was sitting there like, what are we doing? But now that we look at it from the grand scheme of things, 5, 6, 7 years later, however long I think Jordan Love was drafted in 21, so maybe like 4 or 5 years later, we look at the Packers and be like, y'all are the smartest individuals, because it was a good move to be able to prepare for the idea of Aaron Rodgers not being there. And the problem for me with Mike Tomlin, he was a little too loyal to Big Ben Roethlisberger. Like, he never made that draft selection as being the head coach of the Steelers with the idea, okay, we got to kind of draft the quarterback to be able to put the franchise and the coaching staff and everyone associated with the Pittsburgh Steelers in a good standing position going forward in the future if we go ahead and draft the quarterback. Maybe it did not have a lot to do with Mike Tomlin. Maybe it was a Rooney family thing. I don't know. But I kind of put all of that on Mike Tomlin because he's Mike Tomlin. He's called all the shots in Pittsburgh. He's moved off of guys like George Pickens and Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. Like, he's moved off of these guys. He kind of has been the personnel guy with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He hasn't won a playoff game in over a decade. The last time he won a playoff game again was in the 2016-17 season. And when we talk about Big Ben, like, he never wanted to move on. You had players like Kenny Pickett, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Mason Rudolph, Devlin Hodges. These have been your quarterbacks. And granted, it's pretty doggone impressive that Mike Tomlin has been able to get the no losing seasons throwing out these type of quarterbacks, because Mike Tomlin's MO is defense, and that's been the culture of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And over that time frame, the Steelers have had a pretty dominant defense. But offensively, they have not had it. They've had no sort of fastball when it comes to offense because of the quarterback play that you've had at the position. And Aaron Rodgers, even though he's nowhere near the Aaron Rodgers of his prime, but there is no shadow of a doubt that this was the best quarterback that the Pittsburgh Steelers has rolled out since Big Ben left in 2017. Or was it 2017? It might have been 2019, 20. I cannot quite remember. But the last time Big Ben played a snap for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And many people are comparing this situation to the Sean Payton situation. There's been a lot of rumors about Mike Tomlin possibly going on television. I think that's what he is going to do. Again, the Steelers officially did not release him or fire him. So the Steelers retain Mike Tomlin's rights. So if he takes this break and comes back next season, some team is going to have to trade for him. But if Mike Tomlin is stepping out of the door right now, it's a Sean Payton situation. He is not coaching the Pittsburgh Steelers again. So I do suspect, I don't quite know if he's going to do TV. I would lean towards that with Mike Tomlin. I think he needs a year off. But if he does not take that year off, here's our couple teams that I would love to see Mike Tomlin on. And he needs a team that has an established quarterback. And at the current head coaching openings that are currently available, the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, that would kind of be like the most ideal situation. I know there's been a couple theories going on around the media space, kind of like it would be hilarious if Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh pretty much just switch jobs. John goes to the Steelers and Tomlin goes to the Ravens. There's been rumors about, and people have talked about since yesterday, talking about how Lamar Jackson loves Mike Tomlin. So that situation could be pretty interesting with him going to the Ravens. I think the Giants is a good job too. Who knows if Jackson Dart is going to be the man going forward, but they are in a good situation if they could possibly move on from Jackson Dart, maybe even trade up and get Mendoza. But we kind of think that Jackson Dart could potentially be the guy. Let's be honest, Jackson Dart is going to be the best quarterback that Mike Tomlin has worked with since Ben Roethlisberger. Maybe Aaron Rodgers, but obviously Jackson Dart, he's young, he's fresh, he's shown flashes of the capability of being a pretty good quarterback. Brian Daboll really nurtured this kid and got him playing better than Russ. And maybe even Jameis. Even though Jameis had a little streaky spot right there when Jackson Dart was injured, but obviously Jackson Dart was playing pretty good football. And he's in the conversation for Rookie of the Year. He won't win it. I don't think he should win it. I think that should go to Ted. But Jackson Dart's a pretty good quarterback. Now, the next team is the Raiders. And you're kind of thinking, like, established quarterback? This Fernando Mendoza kid, this guy's legit. Like, he looks like he can be the guy that can kind of turn a franchise around. The Raiders have the number 1 pick. Brady's part of the ownership now, and he's moving, pulling all the strings there in Vegas, and that sounds like an ideal situation. I was over here trying to think of the Raiders owner, for some reason, Al Davis, I think, yeah, Al Davis, but yeah, Tom Brady, they moved on from Pete Carroll. That kind of could be an ideal situation for Mike Tomlin. And I think Mike Tomlin kind of needs the opportunity to kind of revitalize the franchise. And I think that's something that John Harbaugh could do as well. So that's the reason why I think the Giants' job and the Raiders' job and the Ravens, the Giants, and the Raiders' job are pretty appealing for a guy like Mike Tomlin, who you went in a good situation in Pittsburgh, already historic franchise. And we all know he's definitely should be a future Hall of Fame coach. But it won't be because of his winning. It will be because of the idea that he's never had a losing season, which that in itself is very, very super impressive. So we're going to be monitoring the Mike Tomlin sweepstakes, the John Harbaugh sweepstakes. There's 9 head coaching openings, the most since 2022. So a lot's going to be going on. I'm going to be monitoring this. You got John Harbaugh is available, Brian Flores, Mike Tomlin, Kevin Stefanski. Like, there's some big names out there that are going to be looking for another fresh start. And who knows if Mike Tomlin will be a part of that group. And we have reached the end of this little video here today. Thank you all for listening, and I will see you on Friday on the next iteration of the Jayden Bryce Show.